Commander Zethkar had seen death in 1,000 forms across the galaxy. The crystalline warriors of Nexus Prime who shattered into razor fragments when they fell. The gas-breathing Korthans who dissolved into acidic mist when their environmental suits failed. The machine-mind synthetics whose optical sensors dimmed to black as their consciousness uploaded to distant servers. Fear, he believed, was simply the biological response to recognizing superior force. He was wrong. Standing on the observation deck of the Galactic Council's flagship Eternal Dominion, Zethkar watched the human delegation's shuttle approach through the reinforced viewport. The small craft looked pathetic against the massive dreadnought that served as the Council's mobile headquarters. Barely larger than a cargo pod, the human vessel moved with none of the aggressive posturing typical of species seeking Council membership. "They call themselves humanity," said Admiral Vostek, her four arms crossed in the traditional hegemony stance of dismissal. "Single-world species, no interstellar empire, no significant military assets. They've submitted an application for Council membership based on what they term unique capabilities." Zethkar's mandibles clicked in amusement. What capabilities could a pre-spaceflight civilization possibly offer the Council? We have 17,000 member species. We've conquered diseases that consumed entire star systems. We've negotiated peace between matter and antimatter beings. What could one small world contribute? The Admiral's skin shifted to the pale blue of uncertainty. "That's what we're here to determine." The humans requested a demonstration. Through the viewport, Zethkar watched the human shuttle dock with mechanical precision. No fanfare, no ceremonial lighting, no displays of technological superiority. It simply arrived. "How many in their delegation?" he asked. "One." This surprised him. Most species sent elaborate entourages for first contact with the Council. Teams of diplomats, scientists, cultural attachés, and military advisors. The Korthans had brought 300 representatives. The Nexus Prime had sent an entire crystal garden of their finest speakers. "Just one human." The transmission said, "One representative will be sufficient for demonstration purposes." Admiral Vostek's skin darkened to skeptical purple. Arrogant for a species that hasn't even achieved faster-than-light travel. The docking bay's atmospheric processors hummed to life as the human vessel completed its seal. Zethkar had overseen hundreds of these first contact protocols. They followed a predictable pattern: initial posturing, technological comparisons, cultural exchanges, capability demonstrations, and finally acceptance or rejection of Council membership. What concerned him was the complete absence of standard diplomatic protocols from the humans. No advanced cultural briefs. No requests for environmental accommodations. No inquiries about Council membership requirements. They had simply transmitted coordinates and a request to observe human capabilities under stress conditions. "Should we be concerned about the phrase stress conditions?" Zethkar asked. Admiral Vostek's primary arms gestured dismissively, while her secondary arms checked her sidearm. "One being against a Council flagship containing 12,000 personnel? I think we can manage any surprises." The airlock cycled, and the human emerged. Zethkar had reviewed the basic physiological data transmitted by the human government. Bipedal mammals, average height approximately 1.8 meters, bilateral symmetry, carbon-based, standard oxygen-nitrogen atmospheric requirements, nothing particularly impressive compared to the galaxy's diverse species. The being who stepped onto the Galactic Council flagship looked entirely ordinary. Medium height, wearing a simple dark uniform with no visible weapons or technology beyond basic communication devices. Brown hair, brown eyes, unremarkable facial features. The human moved with casual confidence, showing neither the aggressive posturing of warrior species nor the submissive deference typical of applicant civilizations. "I am Dr. Sarah Chen," the human said, her voice carrying clearly through the universal translators. "I represent Earth's application for Galactic Council membership." Admiral Vostek stepped forward, her impressive 2.5-meter frame towering over the human. "I am Admiral Vostek of the Hegemony Fleet. This is Commander Zethkar of Intelligence Division. We will be conducting your capability assessment." Dr. Chen nodded politely. "Thank you for agreeing to the demonstration. I understand the Council values practical examples over theoretical presentations." "Indeed," Zethkar interjected. Many species claim unique capabilities. Few can demonstrate them convincingly. What exactly will you be showing us? The human's expression remained calm, almost pleasant. Human adaptability under extreme circumstances, our ability to function when conventional approaches fail. And how do you propose to demonstrate this aboard a council flagship? Dr. Chen reached into her uniform and withdrew a small device about the size of her palm. Zethkar's threat assessment training immediately cataloged it as a potential weapon, but his sensors detected no energy signatures, no chemical explosives, no dangerous radiation. This is a standard human emergency beacon, she explained, holding the device where both council officers could examine it. It broadcasts a distress signal on multiple frequencies, including several that I believe your ship's sensors monitor. Admiral Vostek's skin shifted to confused orange. You plan to call for help as a demonstration of capability. Not exactly. Dr. Chen pressed a series of buttons on the device. This particular beacon has been modified to broadcast what your computers will interpret as a devourer's approach signal. The temperature in the docking bay seemed to drop 10 degrees. Zethkar's mandibles locked in a rigid position. In his 50 years of military service, he had encountered many threats to galactic civilization. Rogue AI networks that consumed entire worlds for processing power. Parasitic species that hollowed out planets like fruit. Quantum anomalies that deleted matter from existence. Nothing compared to the Devourers. The Devourers weren't a species. They weren't a natural phenomenon. They weren't even something that could be negotiated with or understood. They were entropy given purpose, consuming not just matter and energy but the very concept of existence itself. When Devourers appeared in a star system, that system ceased to have ever existed. No ruins, no debris, no evidence that anything had ever been there. The Galactic Council's most advanced civilizations had united only once in recorded history, to flee from Devourer incursions, not to fight them, not to study them, to run and hope that distance and time would keep their worlds safe. You cannot be serious, Admiral Vostek whispered, her skin cycling rapidly through colors indicating extreme distress. The Council's emergency protocols for Devourer signals are absolute. Dr. Chen nodded. I've reviewed your procedures, full fleet mobilization, immediate evacuation protocols, all civilian personnel to emergency pods, military forces to defensive positions, communication blackout to prevent Devourer tracking of transmissions. Those protocols exist for a reason, Zethkar said, his voice tight with growing alarm. Devourer encounters have a 0% survival rate for non-evacuation responses. I understand. The human's finger moved toward the activation switch on her device. This will provide an excellent test of human capabilities under genuine stress conditions. You'll trigger a fleet-wide panic, Admiral Vostek protested. 12,000 beings will believe they're about to face extinction. The psychological trauma alone will be temporary, Dr. Chen interrupted gently. The signal will automatically deactivate after 30 minutes. Your crews will realize it was a false alarm. 30 minutes, Zethkar calculated rapidly. In 30 minutes, this ship will have jettisoned all civilian personnel, armed every weapon system, and prepared for a fight against an enemy that has never been defeated. Yes. You'll be trapped aboard a vessel preparing for a suicide battle. Yes. With 12,000 beings who will be experiencing the most extreme terror of their lives. Dr. Chen smiled. It wasn't a cruel expression, merely confident. That should provide an adequate demonstration of human adaptability. Before either council officer could respond, she pressed the button. Immediately, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Emergency lighting bathed the docking bay in pulsing red. The universal translation system began broadcasting in hundreds of languages simultaneously. Devourer approach detected. All personnel to emergency stations. Repeat, Devourer approach detected. Admiral Vostek's skin had turned the pure white of absolute terror. What have you done? Through the deck plating, Zethkar could feel the massive ship's engines spinning up to emergency power. Somewhere in the distance, he heard the distinctive sound of civilian evacuation pods launching. In 30 seconds, Dr. Chen had transformed the Galactic Council's most powerful vessel into a scene of controlled chaos. I've created an opportunity, the human said calmly, as if discussing weather patterns. Your people are about to experience genuine fear, not the fear of losing a battle or facing a superior enemy, the fear of complete annihilation, the fear that everything they are and everything they've ever known is about to cease existing. The ship shuddered as massive weapon systems rotated toward potential threat vectors. Emergency bulkheads sealed throughout the vessel, dividing the great ship into defensive segments. In the space of 2 minutes, the asterisk Eternal Dominion had transformed from a diplomatic flagship into a fortress preparing for the end of everything. "This is madness," Zethkar breathed. Dr. Chen nodded toward the sealed blast doors leading to the ship's interior. "Your choice, gentlemen. You can remain here in the docking bay, relatively safe from whatever happens next. Or you can accompany me and observe how humans function when fear becomes absolute." Admiral Vostek stared at the human as if she had sprouted additional limbs. "Accompany you where?" "To the bridge, I assume. That's where your captain will be making decisions about how to face the approaching devourers. That's where fear will be most concentrated." Dr. Chen started toward the blast doors. "That's where you'll best be able to observe human capabilities under stress." She paused at the sealed entrance and looked back at them. "Unless you prefer to wait here and file a report based on second-hand observations." The challenge was unmistakable. Zethkar found himself following the human despite every instinct screaming at him to find the nearest evacuation pod. Admiral Vostek hesitated only a moment before joining them. Dr. Chen approached the blast door's security panel. The massive barrier was designed to withstand direct hits from planetary bombardment weapons. During Devourer approach protocols, it would be sealed until the threat passed or the ship was destroyed. "This presents an interesting problem," she mused, examining the control interface. "Your security systems are quite sophisticated." "Those doors cannot be opened during emergency protocols," Admiral Vostek said. "It's physically impossible. The ship's AI has removed all manual overrides." Dr. Chen smiled again, that same calm, confident expression. "Physically impossible according to non-human thinking, yes." She removed another device from her uniform. This one looked like a standard multi-tool, the kind used for basic repairs and adjustments. Nothing that should pose a threat to military-grade security systems. "The interesting thing about your blast doors," she said, kneeling beside the control panel, "is that they're designed to prevent unauthorized access from outside threats. The engineers who built them were thinking about enemy boarding parties, energy weapons, molecular acids, that sort of thing." The multi-tool's tip found a small access port near the bottom of the security panel. Dr. Chen made several quick adjustments to something inside. "But humans have a different relationship with technology. We don't just use our tools, we modify them. We find applications their designers never intended. We make them work in ways that seem impossible." A soft click echoed through the docking bay, followed by the distinctive hum of blast door motors engaging. "Impossible," Admiral Vostek whispered. The massive barrier began to rise, revealing the corridor beyond. Emergency lighting painted everything in harsh red shadows. The sounds of organized panic drifted toward them. Running footsteps, shouted orders, the background hum of weapons systems charging to full power. "Shall we?" Dr. Chen asked, stepping through the open doorway. Zethkar followed, his mind struggling to process what he had witnessed. The human had bypassed the asterisk Eternal Dominion asterisk's most sophisticated security systems, using what appeared to be improvised modifications to standard equipment. Not through superior technology or overwhelming force, but through an approach so unconventional that the ship's designers had never considered defending against it. As they moved through the corridors toward the bridge, they passed scenes of controlled chaos. Korthans in environmental suits moved with practiced efficiency toward defensive positions. Nexus Prime crystal beings chimed in harmonious patterns that coordinated their responses. Synthetic units interfaced directly with ship systems to optimize defensive configurations. Every being they encountered was responding to the Devourer threat with textbook precision, following protocols developed over thousands of years of galactic civilization, doing exactly what they had been trained to do when facing absolute destruction. None of them paid particular attention to Dr. Chen. "Remarkable," Zethkar observed. "They see you as just another council representative." "People see what they expect to see," the human replied. especially when they're focused on larger concerns. They passed a group of hegemony officers coordinating defensive positions. Admiral Vostek's species, proud warriors known throughout the galaxy for their tactical brilliance and unwavering courage in battle. Zethkar watched them work with professional admiration. He also noticed that Dr. Chen was observing them with the detached interest of a scientist studying laboratory specimens. "You're not afraid," he realized suddenly. "Of course not. But devourers represent the ultimate threat to existence itself. Even humans must have survival instincts." Dr. Chen paused at an intersection, consulting the ship's directory display. "Humans are afraid of many things, Commander. Pain, loss, loneliness, failure. But we have a peculiar relationship with existential threats." "How so?" "We get curious." Before Zethkar could ask what she meant, they arrived at the bridge. The command center of the Asterisk Eternal Dominion represented the pinnacle of galactic civilization's technological achievement. Holographic displays showed tactical information from 17 different sensor arrays. Command stations operated by the galaxy's finest military minds coordinated responses that could reshape the outcome of interstellar conflicts. At the center of it all stood Captain Mordun, a Nexus Prime crystal being whose faceted form refracted the emergency lighting into complex patterns. His harmonic voice carried clearly across the bridge as he issued orders with mechanical precision. Evacuation pods launched successfully, all civilian personnel clear of the ship, weapons systems at full charge, long-range sensors scanning for devourer approach vectors. "Captain," Admiral Vostek called out, approaching the command platform. "We need to speak with you immediately." The crystal being's attention focused on them, his harmonic tones shifting to accommodate the new variables. "Admiral, I wasn't aware you remained aboard during evacuation protocols." "This is Dr. Sarah Chen, representing the human species. She's responsible for the devourer signal." Every being on the bridge turned toward Dr. Chen. The silence stretched for several seconds before Captain Mordun's harmonics shifted to a frequency Zethkar recognized as extreme confusion mixed with disbelief. "You're saying a member of an applicant species triggered our devourer protocols." "It's a false alarm," Admiral Vostek explained quickly. "The signal will deactivate automatically in," she checked her chronometer, 23 minutes. The captain's crystal form darkened to deep purple, indicating anger building toward fury. "You've subjected 12,000 beings to terror for a demonstration." Dr. Chen stepped forward. "I've created a learning opportunity for all of us." "Learning opportunity?" Captain Mordun's harmonics climbed toward frequencies that made Zethkar's teeth ache. "Madam, I have 17 years of command experience. I've faced the swarm wars, the quantum rebellion, and the synthetic uprising. I do not require lessons from a species that hasn't achieved interstellar travel." "With respect, Captain, you've never faced genuine fear of extinction. Your species' consciousness transfers to backup crystals when your physical forms are destroyed. The swarm wars were territorial conflicts. The quantum rebellion was a philosophical disagreement. The synthetic uprising was a political revolution." Dr. Chen gestured toward the tactical displays showing defensive preparations. "But this is your people believing they're about to face true oblivion, not death, not defeat, complete erasure from existence. And you believe this gives you some advantage." The human smiled. "I believe it gives me an opportunity to show you what humans do when everything conventional fails." As if summoned by her words, alarms began blaring with a different tone. The bridge's tactical display shifted to show new contacts appearing at the edge of sensor range. "Long-range sensors detecting massive signatures," reported a Corthan technician, his voice muffled by his environmental suit. "Energy patterns consistent with devourer manifestation." Captain Mordun's crystal form went completely transparent with shock. "That's impossible. The signal was supposed to be false." Dr. Chen moved to a nearby sensor station and began examining the readouts. Her movements were quick but calm, her expression remaining unchanged as she processed information that was sending every other being on the bridge toward panic. "These readings are genuine," she announced. "Whatever my signal was supposed to simulate, you now have the real thing approaching your position." Zethkar felt his entire worldview collapse. In his 50 years of military service, He had never heard of devourers responding to artificial signals. They didn't investigate false alarms or follow communication traces. They simply appeared, consumed, and moved on. "How many?" Captain Morden asked, his harmonics barely audible. The Corthan technician's readings scrolled across multiple displays. "Sensor resolution insufficient for accurate count. Estimate minimum 12 entities, possibly more." 12 devourers. Zethkar had studied historical records of their appearances. The largest previous incursion had involved 3 entities. They had consumed an entire star system before moving beyond sensor range. "Time to intercept?" the captain asked. 18 minutes at current approach vector." Dr. Chen straightened from the sensor station. "Interesting timing." "What do you mean?" Admiral Vostek demanded. "My false signal was designed to deactivate in 23 minutes. The real devourers will arrive 5 minutes before that happens." "Coincidence?" Dr. Chen shook her head. "Humans don't believe in coincidence at this scale. Something about my signal attracted genuine devourers to this location." The implications hit Zethkar like a physical blow. "You're saying human technology can accidentally summon the galaxy's ultimate predators?" "I'm saying human technology apparently does things we don't expect." Dr. Chen turned to address Captain Morden directly. "Which brings us to the real demonstration." "What demonstration?" the captain asked, his harmonics tight with stress. "How humans respond when even our backup plans fail catastrophically." Before anyone could respond, Dr. Chen moved to the bridge's central command console. Her fingers moved across controls with practiced efficiency, accessing systems that should have been locked during emergency protocols. "What are you doing?" Captain Morden demanded. "What humans always do when normal approaches fail," she replied, not looking up from her work. "We improvise." The tactical display showed 12 dark shapes moving toward their position with terrifying inevitability. Devourers didn't accelerate or decelerate. They didn't change course or respond to obstacles. They simply moved through space like holes in reality, consuming everything in their path. Dr. Chen's hands moved across the command console with disturbing familiarity. Zethkar realized she wasn't just randomly accessing ship systems. She was following some predetermined plan. "Captain," she said without looking up, "I need you to route all available power to the primary sensor array." "Absolutely not," Captain Morden replied, his crystal form flashing angry red. "All power remains dedicated to weapons and defensive systems." "Your weapons won't work against devourers. Galactic military doctrine acknowledges this. Energy weapons pass through them without effect. Projectile weapons are consumed upon contact. Even your most advanced temporal disruptors have proven useless." "Then what exactly are you proposing?" Dr. Chen finished her work at the console and turned to face the assembled bridge crew. "I'm proposing something your military doctrine has never considered, that devourers might not be invincible." The silence that followed was broken only by the steady stream of tactical updates and damage control reports coming in from throughout the ship. Zethkar found himself staring at this unremarkable human who was calmly suggesting the impossible. "The devourers have consumed entire civilizations," Admiral Vostek said slowly. "Races millions of years older than humanity, technologies beyond anything Earth has developed." "Yes," Dr. Chen agreed, "using conventional thinking." She moved to the main tactical display and began manipulating the holographic controls. The sensor readings shifted to show detailed analysis of the approaching entities. "Every previous encounter with devourers has followed the same pattern," she continued. "Detection, evacuation, consumption. No one has ever attempted to understand what they actually are." "Because understanding requires survival," Captain Morden pointed out, "and survival requires distance. Humans have a different approach to impossible problems." Dr. Chen's modifications to the sensor array began producing results. The tactical display showed increasingly detailed scans of the approaching entities. "We get closer." The readings were unlike anything Zethkar had seen in decades of military service. The devourers appeared as massive voids in space, but the enhanced sensors revealed complex patterns within the darkness. Energy flows that defied known physics. Geometric structures that seemed to exist in more dimensions than space normally contained. "What am I looking at?" Captain Morden asked. Something that shouldn't be possible, Dr. Chen replied, but humans specialize in impossible things. She brought up additional displays showing historical data from previous Devourer encounters. Every incident followed identical patterns: approach, contact, consumption, departure, no variation, no adaptation, no learning. Look at their behavior patterns, she said, highlighting the data. Absolutely consistent across thousands of years and dozens of encounters. Devourers don't change tactics. They don't respond to different defensive strategies. They don't even acknowledge that other entities exist. Because they're unstoppable, Admiral Vostek said. Or because they're not actually alive. This statement produced another shocked silence. The concept of non-living entities with devourer capabilities challenged fundamental assumptions about how the universe functioned. Impossible, Captain Morden said. Non-living entities don't move through space. They don't seek targets. They don't consume matter selectively. Non-living human artifacts do all of those things, Dr. Chen countered. Our automated systems seek targets, move through space, and consume specific materials while ignoring others. She brought up a new set of displays showing comparative analysis between devourer behavior patterns and various types of automated systems. The similarities were striking. You're suggesting the devourers are some form of technology? Zethkar asked. I'm suggesting they're tools, created by someone or something for a specific purpose. What purpose could justify creating entities that consume entire star systems? Dr. Chen smiled grimly. Clean up. Before anyone could ask what she meant, the ship shuddered violently. Emergency alerts began flashing across every display as the first devourer made contact with the Eternal Dominion S outer sensor array. Hull breach in Section 7, reported a technician, but no physical damage detected. How is that possible? Captain Morden demanded. Dr. Chen checked her readings. The devourer isn't attacking the ship, it's sampling it. Sampling? Taking small portions of matter for analysis, like a prospector testing or quality. The ship shuddered again as another devourer made contact. Then another. Within minutes, all 12 entities had reached the flagship and were systematically examining different sections of the hull. Why aren't they consuming us? Admiral Vostek whispered. Dr. Chen was studying her sensor readings with intense concentration. Because we're not what they're looking for. What are they looking for? Evidence of whatever civilization created them. She brought up a new set of displays showing detailed analysis of the devourers' scanning patterns. They were examining the ship's construction materials, energy signatures, technological components, and even biological residues from the crew. Every sample they're taking is being compared to some internal template, she explained. They're searching for specific markers that would identify their creators. You're saying these entities are archaeological tools. Clean-up tools, Dr. Chen corrected. Created to locate and eliminate traces of a civilization that wanted to ensure complete removal from the galaxy. The implications were staggering. A civilization advanced enough to create entities capable of consuming entire star systems, but dedicated to erasing all evidence of their own existence. Why would any species want to eliminate traces of themselves? Zethkar asked. Maybe they made mistakes, Dr. Chen replied. Maybe they created something they couldn't control and wanted to ensure no one could follow their path. Or maybe, Admiral Vostek suggested slowly, they wanted to prevent someone from finding them. Another series of impacts shook the ship as the devourers continued their systematic examination. But instead of the catastrophic hull breaches expected from such encounters, the damage reports showed only minor material losses. They're not going to consume us, Dr. Chen announced with certainty. How can you be sure? Captain Morden asked. Because we don't match their target profile. They're looking for traces of their creator's civilization. Advanced technology, specific energy signatures, particular material compositions. We're primitive by comparison. But what happens when they finish examining us? Dr. Chen checked the tactical display. The devourers were working through their scanning protocols with mechanical efficiency. They'll continue searching for what they're actually programmed to find. Which is the source of the signal that brought them here. Captain Mordun's crystal form shifted through several colors before settling on confused blue. But you said your signal was artificial. My signal was artificial, but it mimicked something real, some type of communication or identification marker used by the Devourer's creators. Dr. Chen brought up analysis of her own false signal alongside the enhanced sensor readings of the Devourer's scanning patterns. The correlation was unmistakable. My modified emergency beacon accidentally reproduced a technological signature that these entities are programmed to investigate. They came here expecting to find evidence of their creator's civilization. And when they realize the signal was false, they'll return to their previous search pattern, moving through the galaxy, examining promising signals, looking for traces of a civilization that probably ceased to exist millions of years ago. The ship stopped shuddering as the Devourers completed their examination. On the tactical display, the 12 entities began moving away from the asterisk Eternal Dominion with the same inexorable purpose they had shown during their approach. "They're leaving," Admiral Vostek said, relief evident in her voice. "For now," Dr. Chen agreed, "but they'll be back whenever someone accidentally transmits a signal that matches their search parameters." "How do we prevent that?" "We don't, but we can prepare for it." She turned to address Captain Mordun directly. "Your people have spent thousands of years fleeing from Devourers because you thought they were unstoppable predators. But they're not predators. They're automated systems following programming created by a long-dead civilization. And you think humans can deal with automated systems better than we can." Dr. Chen's smile returned. "Captain, humans have been fighting malfunctioning automated systems since we invented the wheel. We call it debugging." She moved back to the command console and began entering new commands. "I'm going to upload a complete analysis of today's encounter to your military databases. Devourer behavior patterns, scanning protocols, search parameters, everything." "Why?" "Because the next time they appear, you'll know what they're actually looking for, and you can give it to them." "Give them what they're looking for?" Zethkar couldn't hide his horror at the suggestion. "Not the real thing, fake evidence. False traces of their creator's civilization, something sophisticated enough to satisfy their programming but ultimately meaningless." The tactical display showed the Devourers disappearing beyond sensor range, returning to whatever cosmic search pattern had occupied them for millennia. "You're suggesting we deliberately attract and deceive entities that could consume our entire civilization." "I'm suggesting you stop running from a problem you can solve." Dr. Chen finished her upload and stepped away from the console. "Humans learned a long time ago that most monsters become manageable once you understand what they really want." Captain Mordun's harmonics had shifted to frequencies indicating deep thought. "And what do you want in exchange for this information?" "Nothing. Nothing. Consider it a demonstration of human problem-solving capabilities. Your council membership evaluation was supposed to assess what humanity could contribute to galactic civilization." She gestured toward the tactical displays showing detailed analysis of the galaxy's most feared entities. "This is what we do. We find solutions to problems everyone else considers unsolvable." Admiral Vostek was studying the uploaded data with growing amazement. "This analysis is extraordinary. Detailed behavioral patterns, technological specifications, predictive models for future encounters." "And it's just the beginning," Dr. Chen said. "Give humanity access to your historical databases, your technological resources, your accumulated knowledge of galactic civilization, and we'll find solutions to problems you didn't even know you had." "Such as?" "The quantum storms that consume entire sectors, the temporal anomalies that erase star systems from history, the void parasites that hollow out planets, the recursive loops that trap civilizations in endless time cycles." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Humans don't just solve problems, gentlemen. We solve problems that other species haven't even recognized as solvable." Zethkar found himself staring at this unremarkable being who had casually rewritten fundamental assumptions about the galaxy's most terrifying threat. "How long have humans been aware of the Devourer's true nature?" "Since about 20 minutes ago." "You figured this out in 20 minutes. "I figured it out in the first 5 minutes. I spent the other 15 confirming my hypothesis." Captain Morden's crystal form was cycling through colors that indicated profound recalibration of existing data structures. And if you had been wrong, then we would have died, and the next human representative would have tried a different approach. The next human representative. Dr. Chen nodded calmly. Earth sent 17 of us to various council locations throughout this sector. Different ships, different demonstrations, different approaches to showing human capabilities. 17 simultaneous first contact missions. We wanted to maximize our chances of successful communication. Admiral Vostek was accessing her communications array. I'm receiving reports from other council vessels, similar incidents across the sector, false alarm signals, but each followed by unusual problem-solving demonstrations. My colleagues are very creative, Dr. Chen said. I suspect you'll find their approaches quite educational. The bridge's atmosphere had shifted completely. What began as a routine evaluation of a primitive species had become something else entirely. The Council's representatives were no longer assessing humanity's qualifications for membership. They were trying to understand what they had encountered. Dr. Chen, Captain Morden said carefully, what exactly does humanity want from the Galactic Council? Partnership, not membership. Membership implies you would be accepting us into your existing structures. Partnership implies we would be working together to create new ones. She moved to the main view screen, which showed the star field where 12 devourers had appeared and disappeared within the span of 30 minutes. Gentlemen, your civilization has spent millennia accumulating knowledge, developing technologies, and building structures that have brought order to thousands of worlds. But you've also developed limitations. Patterns of thinking that make certain types of problems seem impossible. And humans don't have these limitations. Humans have different limitations, but our limitations don't overlap with yours. Dr. Chen turned back to face them. Where you see impossible problems, we see interesting challenges. Where you see unbreakable patterns, we see systems that can be modified. Where you see threats that must be avoided, we see obstacles that can be overcome. And in exchange for this perspective, what would humanity require? Knowledge, access to your databases, your technologies, your accumulated understanding of how the galaxy works. That's all. Dr. Chen smiled. Captain, do you know what humans do when we gain access to knowledge we've never seen before? What? We find ways to use it that no one ever imagined. The implications were becoming clear to Zethkar. Humanity wasn't seeking membership in galactic civilization. They were offering to revolutionize it. The Council will need to deliberate extensively before making any decisions, Admiral Vostek said. Of course, but while you're deliberating, you might want to consider the other demonstrations my colleagues are currently conducting. She checked her own chronometer. In approximately 6 hours, human representatives at 17 different council locations will have provided solutions to problems your people have considered unsolvable for thousands of years. What sort of problems? The kind that require human thinking to resolve. Dr. Chen moved toward the bridge's exit. Thank you for your time, gentlemen. I'll be returning to my shuttle now. Wait, Captain Morden called. Where will you go? Home, to prepare for whatever decision the Council makes. And if the Council rejects humanity's application. Dr. Chen paused at the doorway. Then we'll continue solving impossible problems on our own, but we'll do it without the benefit of galactic civilization's accumulated knowledge. You're threatening us. I'm stating facts. Humans don't require Council approval to function, but with Council partnership, we could solve problems that benefit everyone. She smiled one final time. The choice is yours. As Dr. Chen disappeared through the blast doors, Zethkar realized that everything had changed. The galaxy's most feared threat had been reduced to a manageable problem in less than an hour. Fundamental assumptions about the nature of reality had been casually overturned by a species that hadn't even achieved faster-than-light travel. And somewhere in the back of his mind, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. 3 days later, Commander Zethkar stood in the Grand Assembly Chamber of the Galactic Council, watching 17 different species argue about humanity with an intensity that bordered on panic. The massive amphitheater, designed to accommodate the galaxy's most diverse civilizations, echoed with conflicting voices speaking in dozens of languages. The reports had been arriving steadily since Dr. Chen's demonstration. 17 human representatives, 17 impossible solutions to problems the Council had considered unsolvable. The hegemony delegation was describing how a human named Marcus Webb had resolved the quantum storm phenomenon that had been consuming entire star sectors for 3,000 years. According to their report, Webb had identified the storms as feedback loops created by ancient terraforming equipment and had neutralized them using modified mining charges. Impossible, insisted High Counselor Vexter of the Nexus Prime, his crystalline form resonating with skeptical harmonics. The quantum storms have resisted every attempt at containment. They exist partially outside normal spacetime. Admiral Vostek stepped forward, her 4 arms carrying data tablets containing detailed technical specifications. Nevertheless, Sector 47 is now completely stable. The storms have dissipated. Our long-range sensors confirm Webb's modifications were successful. Across the chamber, the Corthan delegation was presenting their encounter with Dr. Elena Rodriguez, who had solved the temporal anomaly crisis that had been trapping their mining colonies in recursive time loops. The Corthans spoke in hushed tones about watching Rodriguez walk into an active temporal distortion and emerge 30 seconds later with a device that unraveled centuries-old paradoxes. She claimed the anomalies were caused by incomplete quantum equations, reported Chief Engineer Maltek through his environmental suit speakers. She spent 40 minutes completing mathematics that our greatest minds have worked on for generations. 40 minutes? Demanded Representative Korth of the Synthetic Collective, his mechanical voice carrying tones of digital disbelief. Our computational networks have dedicated millions of processing hours to temporal paradox resolution. Human mathematics, Maltek replied simply. She said our equations were missing intuitive leaps that seemed obvious to human thinking. Similar reports continued around the chamber. Dr. James Park had solved the void parasite infestation that had been hollowing out planets in the outer rim by identifying them as escaped biological cleanup systems and reprogramming their targeting parameters. Dr. Sarah Kim had resolved the recursive loop phenomenon by treating it as a cosmic-scale debugging problem and applying human software engineering principles. Each solution was elegantly simple, devastatingly effective, and completely outside conventional galactic thinking. Zethkar listened to the reports while watching the Council's leadership attempt to process implications that challenged their fundamental understanding of how the universe worked. These weren't just technological solutions, they were cognitive revolutions. The question before us, announced Supreme Counselor Daresh, her ancient voice carrying across the chamber with the authority of millennia, is whether humanity represents an opportunity or a threat. They solved the Devourer problem in 30 minutes, Admiral Vostek pointed out. Problems we've been fleeing from for thousands of years. Which raises disturbing questions about why we never found these solutions ourselves, replied High Counselor Vexter. Either we are incompetent, or human thinking operates on principles we don't understand. Representative Korth's optical sensors focused on the central podium. Analysis suggests the second option. Human problem-solving methodologies show no correlation with established galactic cognitive patterns. Meaning they think differently than anyone else in the galaxy. Supreme Counselor Daresh gestured for silence as the debate threatened to spiral into chaos. Commander Zethkar, you observed the human demonstration directly. What is your assessment? Zethkar had been dreading this moment. 3 days of analyzing Dr. Chen's performance had left him with conclusions that challenged everything he thought he understood about intelligence, problem-solving, and the nature of impossibility itself. Supreme Counselor, he began carefully, I believe we are dealing with a cognitive paradigm that has no parallel in galactic civilization. Explain. Human thinking appears to operate on assumptions that contradict our established principles of logical problem-solving. Where we see impossible contradictions, they see interesting variables. Where we see unbreakable laws of physics, they see suggestions that can be modified. He activated a holographic display showing analysis of the 17 human demonstrations. Every solution they provided required approaches that violate our standard methodologies, dangerous proximity to threats, modification of systems beyond design parameters, implementation of theoretical concepts without extensive testing. You're saying they're reckless. I'm saying they're willing to take risks that we consider irrational, and those risks produce results we consider impossible. Supreme Counselor Daresh studied the data with the deliberate patience of someone who had guided galactic civilization through multiple millennia of crisis and expansion. What do you believe they want from us? Knowledge, access to our accumulated understanding of galactic civilization, our technologies, our historical databases. And what do they offer in exchange? Zethkar looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives of 17,000 species, civilizations that had conquered disease, poverty, and war, cultures that had achieved technological marvels beyond the dreams of most worlds, minds that had accumulated knowledge spanning millions of years. They offer to show us how to solve problems we didn't know were solvable. The chamber fell silent as the implications settled. The Galactic Council represented the pinnacle of accumulated wisdom and technological achievement. The suggestion that a single-world species could offer them solutions they couldn't find themselves was simultaneously intriguing and terrifying. "There is another consideration," announced High Counselor Vexter, his crystalline form shifting to frequencies indicating deep concern. "If humans can solve our impossible problems, what problems might they be capable of creating?" This question hung in the air like a physical presence. The same cognitive abilities that had neutralized the galaxy's greatest threats could presumably be turned toward destructive purposes. Dr. Chen mentioned that Earth sent 17 representatives to demonstrate human capabilities, Admiral Vostek reported. They coordinated simultaneous contact with Council vessels across multiple sectors. This level of strategic planning suggests sophisticated understanding of our operational procedures. Representative Korth's mechanical systems hummed with processing activity. Analysis confirms, human strategic planning shows detailed knowledge of Council protocols that should be classified information. How could a pre-spaceflight civilization have access to classified Council procedures? Unknown, but the implications are concerning. Zethkar realized the Council was beginning to understand what he had discovered during Dr. Chen's demonstration. Humanity wasn't just offering to solve impossible problems. They were demonstrating capabilities that shouldn't exist. "There's something else," he announced, activating additional displays. "I've been analyzing communication logs from the human demonstrations, cross-referencing timestamps, tactical data, and response patterns." The displays showed detailed breakdowns of the 17 simultaneous human operations. Every human representative acted with precise knowledge of what their colleagues were doing, despite being separated by thousands of light years with no apparent communication between their vessels. Coordinated planning. Impossible. Several operations required real-time adaptation to unexpected circumstances. The humans modified their approaches based on variables they couldn't have predicted. Supreme Counselor Daresh leaned forward in her throne, ancient eyes focusing on Zethkar with sharp attention. "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that human capabilities extend beyond what they've demonstrated. The problem-solving abilities we've witnessed may be only a fraction of what they're capable of." "Evidence." Zethkar brought up detailed analysis of Dr. Chen's performance aboard the Asterisk Eternal Dominion. "She bypassed our most sophisticated security systems using improvised modifications to standard equipment. She identified the true nature of devourers within minutes of observing them. She coordinated her demonstration with 16 other humans across multiple sectors without apparent communication." He paused, letting the implications sink in. "And she did all of this while maintaining a casual, conversational demeanor that suggested none of it was particularly challenging for her." The chamber erupted in concerned voices as representatives began discussing the implications among themselves. The humans had demonstrated abilities that challenged fundamental assumptions about cognitive limits, technological constraints, and the nature of intelligence itself. "Order," Supreme Counselor Daresh called, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We need formal recommendations, not speculation." High Counselor Vexter's crystalline form brightened as he prepared to speak. "The Nexus Prime delegation recommends extreme caution. These humans represent unknown variables in galactic stability. Granting them access to our accumulated knowledge and technology could produce unpredictable consequences. The Hegemony Delegation, Admiral Vostek announced, recommends immediate partnership. The problems they've solved in 3 days represent threats we've faced for millennia. Their capabilities could revolutionize galactic civilization. Representative Korth processed for several seconds before responding. The synthetic collective calculates 73.2% probability that human partnership would produce beneficial outcomes, balanced against 26.8% probability of catastrophic system disruption. Not helpful, Supreme Counselor Daresh observed dryly. Chief Engineer Maltek stepped forward, his environmental suit hissing as he moved. The Korthan delegation wishes to present additional data. He activated holographic displays showing detailed scans of the temporal anomalies before and after Dr. Rodriguez's intervention. Our analysis reveals that the human solution didn't just resolve the immediate crisis. It repaired fundamental structural damage to spacetime that we didn't even know existed. Meaning the temporal anomalies were symptoms of deeper problems. Our previous containment efforts were treating symptoms while the underlying cause continued spreading. The human intervention addressed root causes we couldn't detect. Zethkar felt a chill run through his exoskeleton. Are you saying the temporal anomalies could have spread? Our mathematical models suggest they would have eventually consumed the entire sector, possibly multiple sectors. And humans identified this in 40 minutes. Dr. Rodriguez's exact words were, "Oh, this is easy. You're trying to solve the wrong problem." The implications were staggering. Humanity had casually prevented a catastrophic threat to galactic civilization while solving what the Council considered a localized containment issue. Supreme Counselor Daresh stood slowly, her ancient frame bearing the weight of a decision that could reshape the future of thousands of worlds. This council has never faced a choice with such far-reaching implications. She gestured toward the displays showing human demonstrations. We can choose to embrace partnership with a species whose capabilities we don't understand, gaining access to solutions we desperately need while risking consequences we can't predict. Or we can choose to reject humanity's application and continue facing impossible problems with conventional approaches that have failed for millennia. The chamber fell silent as every representative contemplated the choice before them. Partnership with an unknown variable or continued struggle with unsolvable crises. There is a third option, announced a new voice. Every head turned toward the chamber's entrance, where Dr. Sarah Chen stood waiting for acknowledgement. She wore the same simple uniform from her demonstration, carrying herself with the same casual confidence that had so unnerved Captain Mordun. Dr. Chen, Supreme Counselor Daresh said carefully, this session was not scheduled to include human representation. I'm aware of that, but your deliberations have reached a point where additional information might be helpful. What additional information? Dr. Chen stepped into the chamber's central speaking area, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. You're debating whether humanity represents an opportunity or a threat. The answer is both. She activated a small device that projected holographic displays throughout the chamber. While you've been analyzing our demonstrations, we've been analyzing your reactions, your technological capabilities, your political structures, your historical patterns. You've been studying us. We've been learning about you, just as you've been learning about us. The holographic displays showed detailed analysis of galactic civilization that was disturbingly comprehensive. Political maps, technological assessments, economic models, military capabilities, social structures. How did you acquire this information? Demanded High Counselor Vexter. The same way we solved your impossible problems. We asked different questions than you expected. Dr. Chen gestured toward the displays. Your people have spent thousands of years building an incredibly sophisticated civilization, but you've also built limitations into your thinking that prevent you from seeing certain types of solutions. Such as, you assume that intelligence follows predictable patterns, that problem-solving requires extensive resources, that impossible problems stay impossible. She smiled. Humans make different assumptions. Supreme Counselor Daresh studied the holographic data with growing concern. Are you threatening the Council? I'm informing you that threats and opportunities often look identical from a distance. The question is whether you're interested in finding out which one we represent. And if we choose to reject humanity's application. Dr. Chen's expression remained pleasant. Then we return to Earth and continue developing our capabilities independently. Without Council oversight. Without Council partnership. The distinction was clear. Humanity was offering cooperation, not submission. They would develop their unprecedented abilities with or without galactic civilization's involvement. And if we choose partnership, then we work together to solve problems that neither of us could handle alone. Dr. Chen deactivated her holographic displays and prepared to leave. The choice is yours, Supreme Counselor, but you might want to decide quickly. Why? Because while we've been demonstrating solutions to your known problems, we've also been identifying problems you haven't discovered yet. She paused at the chamber's entrance. Some of them are quite urgent. As Dr. Chen disappeared through the massive doors, Zethkar realized that humanity hadn't been seeking Council approval at all. They had been offering a choice between partnership and irrelevance. The terrifying part was that he wasn't sure which option would be safer for galactic civilization. 6 hours after Dr. Chen's departure, emergency alarms began blaring throughout the Council's central command facility. Zethkar rushed through the corridors toward the crisis center, passing technicians and officials whose expressions ranged from confusion to barely controlled panic. The crisis center buzzed with frantic activity as representatives from dozens of species worked to process incoming reports. Supreme Counselor Daresh stood at the central command platform, her ancient features set in grim concentration as she reviewed data streams from across the galaxy. Commander Zethkar, she called as he entered. Report to Station 7, we need your analytical capabilities. Zethkar moved to the indicated position and began accessing the incoming data. What he found made his mandibles lock in disbelief. Supreme Counselor, he said slowly, I'm reading massive gravitational anomalies in the outer rim sectors. Multiple star systems showing signs of structural instability. Confirmed, 14 systems showing early stages of stellar collapse, but that's not the worst of it. She activated the main display, which showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy with dozens of warning indicators scattered across multiple sectors. We're detecting quantum flux variations in the galactic core, reality distortions in the neutral zone, temporal incursions in the inner colonies. All simultaneous. All within the past 4 hours. Zethkar studied the data with growing horror. Each individual crisis would normally require the full attention of the Council's emergency response teams. Together, they represented a threat to galactic civilization that exceeded anything in recorded history. Are these related phenomena? Unknown, but the timing suggests coordination. Admiral Vostek approached the command platform, her 4 arms laden with additional reports. Supreme Counselor, we're receiving distress signals from Council outposts throughout the affected regions. They're requesting immediate evacuation support. How many beings are we talking about? Conservative estimate, 40 billion. The number hung in the air like a physical weight. Even with the Council's vast transportation resources, evacuating 40 billion beings from multiple crisis zones simultaneously was beyond their logistical capabilities. Options, Supreme Counselor Daresh demanded. High Counselor Vexter's crystalline form had shifted to deep purple frequencies, indicating extreme stress. The Nexus Prime recommend focusing our resources on the most critical systems, except that some losses are inevitable. The hegemony suggests mobilizing every available vessel, Admiral Vostek countered. Maximum effort across all zones. Representative Korth's mechanical systems hummed with calculation. Synthetic analysis indicates insufficient resources for comprehensive response. Probability of successful evacuation, 23.7%. Unacceptable, Supreme Counselor Daresh said firmly. There must be alternatives. There are. Every head turned toward the crisis center's entrance, where Dr. Chen stood with 2 other humans Zethkar hadn't seen before. They moved with the same casual confidence he'd observed in the first human representative. "Dr. Chen," Supreme Counselor Daresh said, her voice tight with controlled emotion, "this is not the time for human demonstrations. This is exactly the time for human solutions." Dr. Chen approached the command platform while her companions moved to empty workstations and began accessing council systems with disturbing familiarity. "Your crisis isn't random," she announced, studying the main display. "It's a coordinated attack by entities you've never encountered before." "Impossible. Our sensor networks monitor the entire galaxy for unknown threats." "Your sensor networks monitor for known types of threats. These entities operate on principles your technology wasn't designed to detect." One of the other humans, a man with graying hair and calm eyes, looked up from his workstation. "Dr. Chen, I'm confirming the pattern. Someone is using the galaxy's fundamental infrastructure against itself." "Infrastructure?" Zethkar asked. Dr. Chen nodded toward the displays showing crisis locations. "Hyperspace lanes, gravitational anchor points, quantum field stabilizers, the basic physical systems that allow galactic civilization to function." "You're saying someone is attacking the structure of space itself." "I'm saying someone is using your own maintenance systems to destabilize everything you've built." She activated her portable device, and new data began appearing on the main display. The crisis zones were indeed connected by hyperspace lanes and quantum infrastructure that the Council had been maintaining for thousands of years. "Every civilization develops infrastructure to support their expansion," the third human explained, a young woman who was somehow accessing classified Council databases. "Transportation networks, communication systems, environmental controls, but infrastructure can be weaponized if you understand how it works." "Who could possibly have that level of understanding?" Dr. Chen smiled grimly. "The same civilization that created the Devourers." Silence fell across the crisis center as the implications sank in. The ancient civilization that had built automated systems to erase traces of their existence had apparently left behind other systems as well. "You're suggesting that our galaxy-wide infrastructure was compromised by a dead civilization." "I'm suggesting that your infrastructure was built on foundations laid by a civilization that wanted to maintain control even after their extinction." She gestured toward the data displays. "Every hyperspace lane, every quantum stabilizer, every gravitational anchor point follows patterns that seem natural and efficient, but they also follow patterns that can be activated remotely by entities with the proper access codes. Access codes that no living species possesses. Access codes that the Devourers were designed to use when they found evidence of their creator's technology." Zethkar felt the universe shift around him as he understood what Dr. Chen was suggesting. The Devourers weren't just searching for their creators. They were waiting for someone to develop technology sophisticated enough to trigger automated defense systems. "Exactly. Your civilization reached a threshold of technological advancement that activated dormant protocols built into the galaxy's infrastructure millions of years ago." Admiral Vostek's skin had shifted to pale white, indicating extreme distress. "Are you saying that achieving galactic civilization automatically triggers ancient defense systems?" "I'm saying that previous galactic civilizations faced the same crisis you're facing now, and none of them survived it." The implications were staggering. The Council's greatest achievements had apparently marked them for extinction by automated systems designed to prevent any species from reaching the level of development achieved by their mysterious creators. "How do we stop it?" Supreme Counselor Daresh asked. "You don't," Dr. Chen replied simply, "but we do." She nodded toward her companions, who had been quietly working at their stations while the Council representatives processed the scope of the crisis. "Dr. Martinez has identified the command protocols being used to destabilize your infrastructure," she announced. "Dr. Kim has located the central coordination node controlling the attacks, and I've developed a counter-protocol that should neutralize the threat." "In 6 hours?" "We've been working on this problem for 3 years." Zethkar stared at the human representative. 3 years, but first contact was 3 days ago." "First official contact," Dr. Chen corrected. "We've been monitoring galactic civilization for considerably longer." How much longer? Since approximately 1950, by Earth's calendar. The crisis center fell silent except for the steady stream of emergency reports and alarm signals. Humanity had been observing galactic civilization for decades without the Council's knowledge. "You've been watching us," Supreme Counselor Daresh said slowly. "We've been learning about you, understanding your technology, your political structures, your historical patterns, preparing for the moment when you would need our help. You knew this crisis would occur. We knew that any sufficiently advanced galactic civilization would eventually trigger the ancient defense systems. The only question was whether we would be ready to help when it happened." Dr. Martinez looked up from his workstation. "Dr. Chen, I have the command protocols isolated, ready to implement countermeasures." Dr. Kim nodded from her position. "Central coordination node located. It's hidden in the galactic core, using quantum masking to avoid detection." "Excellent." Dr. Chen turned to address Supreme Counselor Daresh directly. "We can resolve this crisis, but it will require integration with your command systems." "What kind of integration?" "Complete access to your infrastructure networks, full coordination authority for emergency protocols, temporary command override for crisis response." The Council's leadership exchanged glances. Humanity was asking for control of galactic civilization's most critical systems. "You're asking us to trust you with everything we've built," High Counselor Vexter observed. "I'm asking you to trust us with everything you're about to lose." Dr. Chen gestured toward the main display, where crisis reports continued accumulating at an alarming rate. "In approximately 4 hours, cascading failures in your infrastructure will begin affecting habitable worlds. In 8 hours, your communication networks will collapse. In 12 hours, your transportation systems will fail completely. And then 40 billion beings die, while galactic civilization collapses into isolated fragments that can be eliminated individually by the ancient defense systems." She stepped closer to the command platform. "Unless you let us help." Supreme Counselor Daresh studied the human representatives with the calculating gaze of someone who had guided galactic civilization through countless crises. "What guarantees do we have that you won't simply take control of our systems permanently?" "None." The honest answer seemed to surprise everyone in the crisis center. "You have no guarantees," Dr. Chen continued. "But you have precedent. We've demonstrated our capabilities, shown you our problem-solving methods, and proven that we can resolve impossible situations. You've also demonstrated abilities we don't understand and access to information you shouldn't possess. True, but right now, we're the only ones who can save your civilization." Dr. Martinez called out from his workstation. "Dr. Chen, the cascade is accelerating. We need to implement countermeasures within the next 30 minutes or the damage becomes irreversible." Dr. Chen turned back to Supreme Counselor Daresh. "Time's running out. Do you want to save galactic civilization, or do you want to maintain control while it collapses?" The question cut through layers of diplomatic protocol and political considerations to the fundamental choice facing the Council. Trust an unknown species with everything they had built, or watch it all be destroyed by threats they couldn't counter. "If we grant you access," Supreme Counselor Daresh asked, "what happens afterward?" "We save your civilization, then we discuss partnership terms." From a position of strength. Dr. Chen smiled. "From a position of mutual benefit. You need our capabilities to solve impossible problems. We need your accumulated knowledge to understand how the galaxy really works. And if we refuse, then you face the ancient defense systems alone, and we return to Earth to prepare for the next galactic civilization that might develop in a few million years." Admiral Vostek stepped forward. "Supreme Counselor, the hegemony recommends granting temporary access. The alternative is unacceptable." High Counselor Vexter's crystalline form flickered with conflicting frequencies. "The Nexus Prime, concur with the hegemony assessment." Representative Korth processed for exactly 3.7 seconds before announcing. "Synthetic Collective calculates 94.3% probability that human intervention represents optimal survival strategy." Supreme Counselor Daresh closed her ancient eyes for a moment, weighing a decision that would reshape the future of thousands of worlds. When she opened them, her expression was resolved. Dr. Chen, you have temporary command authority for crisis resolution. Thank you. Dr. Chen immediately moved to the central command console. Dr. Martinez, begin implementation of counter protocols. Dr. Kim, prepare to interface with the coordination node. Full integration with council systems. What followed was unlike anything Zethkar had witnessed in 50 years of military service. The three humans worked with seamless coordination, their hands moving across council control systems as if they had designed them personally. Data streams that had been chaotic moments before began organizing into coherent patterns. Crisis reports shifted from emergency status to stabilized conditions. Within minutes, the gravitational anomalies in the outer rim began stabilizing. Quantum flux variations in the galactic core returned to normal parameters. Temporal incursions in the inner colonies dissipated completely. How is this possible? Admiral Vostek whispered. Dr. Chen didn't look up from her work. We're not just stopping the attacks, we're upgrading your infrastructure to prevent future incidents. Upgrading? Your systems were built on ancient foundations that contained hidden vulnerabilities. We're replacing those foundations with architecture that can't be compromised by external protocols. Dr. Kim announced from her station. Central coordination node neutralized. Ancient defense systems are going dormant. Dr. Martinez nodded from his position. Counter-protocols fully implemented. Galactic infrastructure now operating on secure foundations. The crisis center's alarms fell silent for the first time in hours. Status displays showed green indicators across all sectors. The cascading failures that had threatened to destroy galactic civilization had been not just stopped, but prevented permanently. It's over, Supreme Counselor Daresh asked. The immediate crisis is resolved, Dr. Chen confirmed, but this was just the first test. First test. The ancient civilization that built these defense systems was extremely thorough. They created multiple layers of protection to prevent any species from reaching their level of technological development. She stepped away from the command console and faced the Council's leadership directly. What you experienced today was the equivalent of an automated security check. The real defenses are much more sophisticated. How much more sophisticated? Dr. Chen smiled. Let's discuss that during our partnership negotiations. As the humans prepared to leave the crisis center, Zethkar realized that everything had changed again. The Council was no longer evaluating humanity for membership. They were negotiating for their civilization's survival with entities whose capabilities exceeded their comprehension. And somehow, that felt like the beginning of something extraordinary, rather than the end of everything they had built. 1 year later, Commander Zethkar stood in the observation lounge of the Joint Human Council Research Station orbiting Earth, watching construction teams from 17 different species work alongside humans to build something that had never existed in galactic history, a truly integrated civilization. The changes had been remarkable and terrifying in equal measure. Within 3 months of the partnership agreement, human-designed upgrades to galactic infrastructure had eliminated 6 different categories of impossible problems that had plagued the Council for millennia. Space-time parasites that had been consuming entire sectors were neutralized using modified quantum dampeners. Entropy cascades that had been spreading through the outer rim were reversed using temporal stabilizers based on human temporal engineering principles. But the most significant changes weren't technological, they were conceptual. Commander, called Dr. Chen from across the lounge, would you join us? We're discussing the next phase of expansion. Zethkar moved to the central table where Dr. Chen sat with Admiral Vostek, High Counselor Vexter, and 3 other humans he had come to know as Earth's primary liaison team. The humans had maintained their simple uniforms and casual demeanor, but their authority was unquestionable. What expansion? He asked, settling into a chair designed to accommodate his species' physiology. Dr. Martinez activated a holographic display showing detailed maps of unexplored galactic regions. Long-range sensors have detected evidence of 17 other galactic clusters with signs of advanced civilization development. Other galaxies? Dr. Kim nodded. The ancient civilization that created the Devourers and infrastructure defense systems operated on an intergalactic scale. They left monitoring systems throughout the local galaxy group. Monitoring systems that are now activating, Dr. Chen added. Other civilizations in other galaxies are reaching technological thresholds similar to what the Council achieved. They'll face the same ancient defenses you encountered. Admiral Vostek's skin shifted to concerned orange. Are you suggesting we expand our partnership to include other galaxies? We're suggesting that the problems we've been solving aren't unique to this galaxy. High Counselor Vexter's crystal form resonated with complex harmonics indicating deep thought. The implications are staggering. Intergalactic civilization on a scale beyond anything we've imagined. Beyond anything anyone has imagined, Dr. Chen corrected. The ancient civilization that created these systems was apparently the first to achieve intergalactic reach. They wanted to ensure no one else would follow their path. Why? Because they discovered something that made them believe intergalactic civilization was too dangerous to allow. Dr. Martinez brought up additional displays showing analysis of the ancient defense systems. Every protocol we've encountered has the same underlying purpose: prevent any species from developing technologies that could affect the fundamental structure of reality itself. What kind of technologies? The kind that could accidentally destroy universes. Zethkar felt his worldview shift again. Over the past year, he had become accustomed to humans casually redefining the scope of possible threats and solutions. But the suggestion that entire universes could be at risk exceeded even his expanded understanding. You're saying the ancient civilization discovered technologies that were too dangerous to develop. We're saying they discovered that certain technologies are so dangerous that even attempting to develop them triggers automatic universe-scale defensive responses. Dr. Kim activated new displays showing theoretical models that hurt to look at directly. The physics involved operate on scales that make galactic civilization look like a single-cell organism. Getting it wrong doesn't just destroy worlds or star systems. It destroys the underlying mathematical structures that allow reality to exist. And the ancient civilization was concerned that other species might accidentally trigger these responses. Not just concerned, terrified. Dr. Chen leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. Imagine developing a technology that could solve every problem your civilization has ever faced. Unlimited energy, perfect control over matter and space, the ability to create or modify universes at will. That sounds beneficial. Now imagine that using this technology incorrectly could cause all of existence to stop existing. Not just your galaxy or your universe, but the entire framework of reality that allows anything to exist anywhere. The implications were beyond terrifying. They were existentially incomprehensible. The ancient civilization reached this threshold, Dr. Martinez continued. They developed technologies that could reshape reality itself, and they realized that even a small mistake could end everything that had ever existed or ever could exist. So they created defensive systems to prevent anyone else from reaching the same point. They created defensive systems to prevent anyone from reaching the point where they could make existence-ending mistakes. Admiral Vostek's 4 arms gestured in patterns indicating extreme concern. Are you saying that Human Council partnership has brought us closer to this threshold? We're saying that any sufficiently advanced civilization will eventually approach technologies that could threaten reality itself. The question is whether they have the wisdom to recognize the danger before it's too late. High Counselor Vexter's harmonics shifted to frequencies indicating profound unease. And humans believe they have this wisdom. Dr. Chen smiled. Humans believe in learning from other people's mistakes rather than making them ourselves. She activated new displays showing detailed analysis of the ancient civilization's final records, recovered from the defensive systems they had neutralized. The ancients tried to develop reality-shaping technologies in isolation. They made their discoveries without external perspectives, without alternative viewpoints, without the kind of collaborative thinking that might have helped them recognize the dangers. You're suggesting that partnership prevents the